Hello, my name is Mitchell. I'm a professional nutsack. Wow, what a dummy. Sorry, I felt it in my pocket. I was like, oh,
Is that
found
where it was?
it.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Team Morale Podcast, where we do our three favorite things. We talk a little bit of booze, a little bit of beer, and a whole lot of basketball. I am your host, Ethan, and joining me, he is back in the fort, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, Mitch.
Oh, couldn't feel better. I am so happy to be back. Last couple we've had to do them from Dallas or from Portland, but now we get to sit face to face. It's great. I missed you, buddy.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. Excited. We are through the holiday season for the most part. We got New Year's coming up, but the holiday season is kind of wrapping up here, and with that, the basketball season is just starting.
Yes, it is. We have actual basketball games that we get to talk about. Teams are doing things and playing, and we get to compare and contrast people and evaluate. I'm so excited to have basketball back, man.
Yeah, it's just an exciting time. And just with everything going on, we're about a week into the NBA season at this point. This is a catch-up podcast. We're just going to catch everyone up with some of the highlights that have happened so far.
Yes. We are in the catch-up podcast, not the mustard podcast, not to be mistaken, people. Get ready for more dad jokes. It's feeling like a dad joke 2021 kind of year.
Oh, boy. What are we drinking?
We are drinking Bulleit Bourbon Frontier Whiskey. So Bulleit is pretty popular. It has two really popular styles. One is the Bourbon Frontier Whiskey, which is what we got, and then the other one is the Bulleit Bourbon Rye. And it's been gaining a lot more popularity. It's created by a guy named Diago. And so actually where they distill the bourbon has moved from place to place, and it was at one point inside of the distillery that created Four Roses whiskey. Shout out to Four Roses.
Episode 2.
Yeah, all the way back to episode 2. But it is very cool. It's it definitely has a high rye mash bill, even less so than your normal just rye is going to be, but for a bourbon has a high rye mash bill, and we're going to taste it and tell you what we think later.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I've never had Bulleit before, but I have had Four Roses before, and I
never had Bulleit?
Never had Bulleit.
Big Bulleit fan.
He is a big Bulleit fan.
I'm a big Bulleit fan. So I'm putting the book of whiskeys away. A new gift.
Shout out to my sister Grayson. She got me this cool book with a bunch of whiskeys and little blurbs about them. So we'll be using that from time to time to kind of just,
Yeah, it kind of tells you what kind of tastes it has, the kind of aromas that you're supposed to get. So it's going to be good to kind of taste it ourselves and then go back and see what is it we're actually supposed to be tasting and what we think we're tasting.
Yes. Also, we have one ice cube in the glass today.
One giant ice cube. So it's one of those ice balls, which, do you know why they make those, Ethan?
I think I do. It is because there's less surface area on the ball and it melts at a slower rate, therefore diluting the whiskey at a slower rate.
Yes. So less like water in your whiskey. Are you going to be able to handle this? Do we need to get you 3 or 4 giant ice ball ice cubes?
I will be okay. All right, well, let's get into what we're going to talk about today. We've got a couple of topics. A lot has happened in the NBA. Mitch, before we get deep dive into what we've got here, just overall impressions of the NBA a weekend so far.
It's been kind of crazy. We've seen a lot of the lower end teams that we thought were just going to be horrible and go winless get a couple early wins. The Cavs have been looking great. The Pacers have been looking really good. And then we've had some crazy games. I'm sure we're going to get into it later, but the Clippers losing by 50 points, game winners by Sabonis and game winners by Damian Lee. It's already been a really fun season, but I've definitely noticed that teams are not as sharp as what they usually are going into the season.
It's definitely been a sloppier start to the season compared to most other seasons, which we can chalk up to less of a training camp. Let me ask you this. What is your surprise team and what is your disappointing team so far? a weekend.
Ooh, weekend. All right, I'm gonna go surprise team as the Cavs. The Cavs have been playing really well. Andre Drummond is absolutely balling. He's playing like the Andre Drummond of old, where he's been putting up just around 23 points a game, right around 12 rebounds a game. He is absolutely dominating. And the young duo of Darius Garland and Colin Sexton are really balling out right now. Colin Sexton put up a 32-point game. In the same game, Darius Garland put up 21 and 12 assists. I mean, it looks like they might be a new kind of version of Dame and CJ.
Yeah, they look good. I mean, Sexton averaging 27 a game and just scorching shooting splits. I mean, they're definitely not sustainable, but I'm pretty sure he's shooting I think he's above 55% from the field, and
59% from the field and
66 from three. I did see that,
Yeah.
which is just, I think he's 2 of 3. So I don't know what the efficient or what the volume is there, but it's still just scorching numbers and definitely unsustainable, but it's fun while it lasts.
Yeah, and then Darius Garland shooting 55% from the field and 50% flat from three. I mean, both of them are really shooting the lights out, and they're actually pairing pretty well with the whole Andre Drummond, Larry Nance, Kevin Love combo of big men. And it looks like they might be a real basketball team this year.
So I haven't watched a lot of Cavs games for obvious reasons. And so are they starting all 3 big men, or is there a wing in there that they're starting?
Let me double check and see what their starting lineup has been the last couple of days. Let's check the Sixers win. How about them beating the Sixers by a lot?
76ers handedly.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy to me. I mean, the Cavs are terrible.
Yeah, I know.
Or so we thought.
They won by 20, by the way. Their starting lineup so far is Darius Garland, Colin Sexton, Kevin Love at the small forward, Larry Nance at the power forward, and Andre Drummond at the center. They're doing the 3 big man thing that we talked about before.
Why?
Because it's dominance. You cannot stop them. They are going to win the championship this year with their 3 center lineup. This is crazy. This is like the opposite of what the NBA has been going to lately.
So when we do our deep dive on the Cavs, we're going to have to find a drink that's just off the wall, absurd, and unnecessary.
Just craziness.
That'll be the Absinthe podcast.
Yeah, and Drummond also just absolutely balling out. Drummond right now is averaging 20 points a game and 14 rebounds a game. And it's just fitting. Kevin Love isn't shooting a whole lot. I mean, he's only averaging 9.5 points a game at this point. And so the guy that you would assume would be your star going into the season has decidedly taken a step back and totally been okay with the youngsters and Sexton and Garland taking over. And honestly, good for them because it's really showing like it's going to work.
I mean, as of now, we are less than 5 games into the season, so we've got a lot of growing to do. But again, a quality win against a good Sixers team is a good indication of where this team's going. A lot of teams are going small and they're going big, and I mean, the weird thing to me is they're going big with guys that don't spread the floor.
Yeah, outside of
Love, but I mean, Nance and Drummond don't spread the floor, so I'm like, what are we doing? But it's working, so I can't fault them.
I mean, Nance is shooting 57% from 3. I don't know if that's off 4 threes taken for the season or not, but he's shooting them and making them. Kevin Love is shooting the worst out of the bunch with 33%.
What's Drummond shooting?
I don't think Drummond even pretends to try to shoot threes. Yeah, he's 0%. He's not even pretending like he knows how to shoot threes. Stick in your lane, man. I love it.
That guy is a board getter.
Yeah, he is. So that's a really exciting team. And then I would say that my most disappointing team so far is probably the Nuggets. I mean, the Nuggets now have losses to a couple of teams. He's got the Kings and the Clippers. Clippers obviously a good team, but losing to the Kings is not great. The Kings are showing that they're going to be a very middle of the pack Western Conference team this year. And so it makes you wonder what is going wrong with the Nuggets. Jokic is still putting up crazy stats, and he's still doing Jokic type things. Against the Kings, Jamal Murray shot really badly, and I think that that's just kind of first game of the season, like being really rusty sort of deal. But it makes you, but they are last in defensive rating. They're the worst defensive team through the first week of the season, and it makes you wonder, like, is that what their main issue is going to be? Did they lose too much defense in this offseason, and putting Porter as a starter small forward, is it just not meshing well?
Yeah, I mean, and yet you could think, yeah, they lost to the Clippers. The Clippers are a good team, but in the grand scheme of things, they were whooped by the Clippers. They were never really in that game. That game was over before it even started, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And the game against the Kings was close. I mean, they only ended up losing by 2, but it's not great when Jamal Murray, your main guy, is only averaging 16 points a game on 34% shooting and 25% from 3. Like, that is, if Jamal Murray is not cooking, I have a hard time believing that this Nuggets team can make a run like they did last year, because Jokic is amazing and he's going to do Jokic type things. But Jamal Murray, I think, is kind of the gas to that team. Like, when he's cooking, they're very, very hard to stop.
They are, but they lost a lot of defense in Jeremy Grant leaving. Mason Plumlee's not a bad defender. Paul Millsap getting older. It's just like they've lost a lot of their defenders. I mean, Gary Harris getting another year older, even though he's young. But I mean, Gary Harris is still like, I don't know why, but I always pictured Gary Harris being this like stud defender. In the past couple of years, I haven't seen it. And I know he's been injured, so maybe that's why. But like, this team struggles on the defensive end, and it's hard to win a shootout when, you know, Jamal Murray isn't going to be cooking. And if we know one thing about Jamal Murray, when he's on, he's on. And when he's off, he's off.
Really off. He's really off. And so just for a frame of reference, here's what they're running out as their lineup. The only guy that has not been healthy for the first couple games is JaMychal Green, which surely he'll step in as like the backup big guy. But their starting lineup, Murray, Gary Harris, who has been a huge disappointment. He's just like, he's not the same defender that you saw even a couple years ago, and that's what he's supposed to specialize in and really bring to this team. Michael Porter Jr., who doesn't like to play defense. Paul Millsap, who's a great vet, but he's definitely getting older. Jokic, and then your bench consists of Monte Morris, Will Barton, PJ Dozier, and Isaiah Hartenstein. Is that a bench that like you're really loving and comfortable with and like trying to make a run? Because if you're the Nuggets, your thought is, okay, we're a Western Conference Finals team and we're young, we should develop more into a championship caliber team.
I'd agree. And it's one of those things where you look at the roster, and like last year and the year before, it was all about depth. They had so much depth. They almost had like
too much.
An embarrassment of riches. You were looking at guys on the end of their bench that were playing, like, dang, like that guy would be like a definite like rotation guy on another team. And you know, these guys aren't playing. And now this year you look at the bench and it's like, yeah, these guys are okay. I mean, they definitely are lacking a backup big. They're definitely lacking some perimeter defense. You're lacking wing defense. I mean, Jokic is going to have to backpack him a little bit until Murray figures stuff out.
Yeah, exactly. And so defense is where this team is going to hurt, and depending on how good Isaiah Hartenstein, which to his credit for a backup center, he actually has been playing pretty well this year, but they've been struggling on the boards, and I think they're going to continue to struggle on the boards throughout the course this year. So that and defense, maybe they shore it up at some point by making a trade or picking someone up off the waivers. But I'm a little nervous about what the what the Nuggets have got going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about this week just in general. The NBA comes out with Players of the Week, Players of the Month, and the first Players of the Week were two kind of surprise guys in Domantas Sabonis from the Indiana Pacers, and then Brandon Ingram of the New Orleans Pelicans. Domantas Sabonis has been incredible. I mean, 24 points per game, 11 boards, and 7 assists is just...
It's good.
It's just... I mean, from a big man, nonetheless.
Yeah, shooting 57% from the field and 44% from 3, too. So he's showing that he's turning into a do-it-all kind of big man in a la Nikola Jokic or a la his father, Arvydas Sabonis. He's starting to show a lot of flashes of the all-around game. I'm sure his dad is just beaming watching him and be the NBA Player of the Week. Kind of a surprise.
Yeah, and I mean, he's already got a game winner under his belt this year, and have pushed the Pacers to be one of the top teams so far in this early season.
Yeah. So the Pacers are playing really well. They're running through Domantas as like their new star guy, which it feels like they have a new star guy almost every year. I know Sabonis was an all-star, but TJ Warren was definitely their guy in the bubble. And pre-Sabonis, it was Oladipo. And pre-Oladipo was Paul George. It feels like they have a new star, all-star caliber guy all the time on this team. And I am really happy to see Sabonis. He comes out of Gonzaga. I love Gonzaga. They're a Northwest team, and he's just been absolutely balling out. And so I've always loved his dad. I'm always rooting for Domantas Sabonis, and the fact that he's playing so well this early, I think, is a really good sign for the Pacers.
Yeah, and I mean, there was a lot of question marks coming into this year about whether or not it was, Domantas Sabonis, Miles Turner, the two big men. They don't really mesh. They don't really fit. If you're running the offense through Sabonis and he is your guy, that one makes Miles Turner expendable, meaning you could trade him for another asset to really fit next to Domantas Sabonis and really just run your offense through him. Or two, you tell Miles Turner, hey, just bear down on defense and make open threes. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, which I think is definitely what he's doing, because he is currently averaging, unless I'm reading this incorrectly, 5.7 blocks per game. Miles Turner is.
No way. That is.
Now, we're only through a couple of games, but if they actually could sell Turner on the idea that, like, look, Sabonis is going to be our creativity. We're going to run the ball through him on offense. That's just what's best for us. But we need you. We need you to be our anchor. We need you to be like the center point of our defense. And if you guys together anchor the offense on one side and then Turner, you anchor the defense on the other, we could be a really darn good basketball team. And so I think that is the pitch that they sold him, because he's only averaging 9.7 points per game. And he could still, like, when he's open, like, you're fine with him shooting. Like, you're fine with him taking shots. But I think that they now have a good dynamic between the two of them. It's leading to a lot of wins.
Yeah, and I did look at Miles Turner is averaging 5.7 blocks per game. He's averaging 9.7 points, 5.7 blocks, almost a steal and a half, and 7 boards. That is video game-like numbers.
And he has played in all the games. This is not just like a 1 or 2 game, like he just absolutely went bonkers. Like he has played all of their games up to this point and is averaging 5.7 blocks.
My goodness.
That is crazy. That's crazy for 2K.
And so, I mean, again, if you can just convince Turner, like, hey, be a defensive monster, go get a DPOY. He's a guy that could win a DPOY. That is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah. All right. Enough about Sabonis. Let's go to the other surprise player of the week in the Western Conference, coming out of the Pelicans. No, it's not the guy that you keep hearing of. It's his teammate, Brandon Ingram.
Yeah, and by the guy we're hearing of, it's Zion. Because the NBA and ESPN can't say 2 words without either Luka, LeBron, or Zion nowadays. But Brandon Ingram has quietly been balling.
Yes, Brandon Ingram playing very well, very efficiently, and is, I think, turning into a really good complement type of player as to what Zion needs next to him. Because Zion, like, loves to bully down low and all that stuff. But Ingram has such a nice touch from just about anywhere on the floor. And the comps for him coming into the league at the time was a like Kevin Durant type. And I'm not going to say he's as good as Kevin Durant, but that is certainly the type of guy that he's starting to turn into right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at his stat line, 26.7 points per game, 6.7 assists, which is a lot. And then 7.3 rebounds. He's really becoming a true all-around player and almost a point forward.
Yeah. With, again, very efficient shooting splits. He shot 44% from the field, and he shot 47% from 3. And I can't rave enough about how good Ingram has looked. He was our most improved player of the year last year, and it looks as though he really went back to the grind and, like, has developed his game even more, to the point where I think that he's absolutely going to be a multi-time All-Star, and I think that he's going to be a very effective basketball player for the rest of his career, wherever that is, because it's still kind of up in the air whether the Pelicans stick with this Zion Ingram. This is kind of their duo now, or do they move Ingram on and go get, I don't know, someone like James Harden has kind of been thrown out there for a guy like Ingram. So what is it you want to do with him? But for right now, Ingram is definitely stapling himself as one of the great young stars in the league right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for as young as he is, to accomplish what he's had and to be around the league as long as he's had. I mean, these guys that come in, freshmen in college, those 18, 19-year-olds that come in, they're in the league 4 or 5 years before they even have to get their sea legs a little bit. And it sounds like he's finally figuring it out. He's finally figuring out what his game is. His fit on this team is, in my opinion, perfect. He is a perfect point forward to run with Zion. And yes, the media will say it's Zion's team, but he is the engine of the Pelicans right now.
Absolutely. Yes, everything you're going to hear is, look how good Zion is. This is Zion's team. It all runs around Zion. That is not actually the case when you sit down and watch a Pelicans basketball game, because you're going to see a lot of Ingram with the ball in his hands, a lot of him actually creating the offense, bringing the ball up the court. Everything is actually running through Ingram, where Zion, it plays much more of like the garbage man role, where he is so much bigger and stronger and can jump higher than everyone, where he's getting all those offensive rebounds and he's always the one running the break. But Ingram is actually the one that's creating this offensive flow that's working for the Pelicans right now. Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. And you take Zion off this team, I still think this team is not a contender, but a playoff
Caliber.
Fighter.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Again, no one in the West is a lock, but they are in the fight. You take Ingram off this team, I'm worried.
Yeah. I am much more worried about the Pelicans if they lost Ingram than if they lost Zion.
Yeah. And just going off what you said with the whole Harden thing, if he becomes available, he might pass Ben Simmons for the best young available player on the trade block.
Yeah. Absolutely, because with Simmons, we're constantly running into the same questions, like, can he shoot? Is he actually a leader? Is this a guy that can get you W's in the playoffs? Where you see a guy like Ingram, and there's still a lot of question marks. We haven't seen him in really intense playoff situations yet, but he has got all of the necessary tools to be a really good basketball player in today's NBA, and the ability to go and create his own shot, the ability to go and like play make for other people at the length that he does it with is really remarkable, and what's going to stand out for him going forward.
And in a league where everyone talks about you needing to be like, every good team has a 6'8" guy who can score the ball, guy who can rebound the ball, guy who can pass the ball. He's becoming that type of player. He's becoming I'm not saying he's LeBron, but he's becoming that like point forward type of player that is so coveted nowadays.
Yeah, like the ultimate long, lengthy, star version of 3-and-D that you want, that also can play make. Yeah, that guy is going to be very valuable. Kudos to you, Brandon Ingram. Congrats on getting Player of the Week.
Yeah, absolutely. This again, 2 surprises, 2 young guys, 2 guys on not all-star, number 1 seed type teams winning Player of the Week the first week of the NBA season. It's why we love it. There's so many good players. There's so many fun players to watch, and these are 2 of the young and bright ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so let's take a break here. Let's get back into this Bulleit whiskey. Let's talk about it. Mitch, what do you got for us in terms of taste?
All right, so after sipping on it for a little bit, I very much like Bulleit. I think that Bulleit is one of the smoother whiskeys that you're going to get. I will say that a lot of my ice has gone into it at this point, so it has quite a bit of water in it. But I always have enjoyed Bulleit. It's one that I commonly would, if I'm ordering round of shots, people kind of, it's much more palatable for people who don't drink a ton of whiskey or don't drink a ton of alcohol. Like, I just find it to be really smooth.
I see it as a good starter whiskey. Mm-hmm. It's one that if you someone like me who doesn't, like the heavier whiskeys, I like it. If anything, this podcast has shown me is that I am learning a lot more about whiskey. I am learning my palate. I'm getting better at tasting heavier and more intense whiskeys. This one, I don't think I would have liked it, 6 weeks ago. That being said, I like it. It's smooth. It's going down easy, and I'm getting better at liking whiskeys. Damn it.
Yeah, good. I'm glad, because that's a big part of our podcast here.
It's a good part of what we do twice a week.
Yeah, I would describe Bulleit as a really, really good whiskey for any kind of mixed drink. Our fancy new book that we have here actually recommends the mint julep.
You want to plug the name of the book?
Yes. The book is American Whiskey, Bourbon, and Rye, A Guide to the Nation's Favorite Spirit. Includes profile ratings and tasting notes for more than 300 whiskeys. This is a very long title. But yeah, apparently it goes well with the mint julep. We're going to have to look into that.
Yeah, I don't know what a mint julep is, but
we had them when we went to Mississippi. Shout out Jack and his family for letting us go and hang out there. We had mint juleps there.
I still don't know what a mint julep is.
We'll get you refreshed. We'll have a mint julep later tonight.
All right, sounds good. But yes, the Bulleit, very good, very smooth, a good starter whiskey, like you said, good for shots for people who don't necessarily drink a lot of whiskey. Someone like me wouldn't like it earlier, but I like it now.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys, you can find it at just about every liquor store that you can find. Go and get yourself some Bulleit Bourbon and tell us what you think.
Absolutely. Yes. Don't forget to add us on Instagram, and any requests that you have, anything you guys want us to do on the podcast. If you have something you guys want us to discuss, feel free to let us know. Any of that stuff, please let us know.
Sounds good.
I'm not talking to you. All right, let's get back into what we're talking about here this week. I can't wait to talk about this next topic, because it is the Mavericks beating the absolute snot out of the Clippers. Did it bring joy to my heart? No, it brought more than joy to my heart to watch the Mavs stomp all over the Clippers and just make them sad, because it made me beyond happy.
Yeah, talk about a revenge game.
Oh, so much happiness.
I was traveling home yesterday, and I was in the airport, and I turned on my phone, turned YouTube TV on, and NBA TV was showing the Clippers Mavs game. I was like, oh, I'll toss this on. And it was, I think, 60-15 at the time. I was like, no way is this correct. Like, I think the bug operator must have screwed something up, because there's no way that you guys are winning by this much.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely nuts. I was actually working the Dallas Cowboys game when they were playing the Eagles, and it was such a obscure, crazy score that they put it up on the Jumbotron. And I'm sitting there like, no way. So naturally, I pull out my phone and I'm looking at it, and I was like, holy cow, we are up 77-27, and it's halftime. Good Lord.
You know, looking at the stat line too, it's crazy how you guys didn't have more like 20-point scores. It's kind of just like a bunch of people got on the board.
Yeah, I mean, we only had 4 guys in double figures, with Josh Richardson at 21. Luka obviously had a good game with 24 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. And then Jalen Brunson off the bench had 11. But I mean, other than that, we just had a bunch of guys with like between 5 and 9.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, that's the epitome of a team game right there. It must be good to see as a Mavericks fan.
Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. I love nothing more than looking at Beverly's 2 points, 2 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 for 2, a minus 23 plus minus.
Yeah, that is amazing. It was the largest deficit at halftime in the shot clock era, which goes back to the 1950s. And I'm pretty sure I saw a stat that if the Mavericks didn't score a single point in the entire second half, they still would have won by 4.
Yes. I don't know if it was 4. I think it was 1. We were
Something
up
like
50
that.
at halftime, and we ended up winning the game by 51.
You could have just mailed it in.
Yeah,
you could have tossed you and me out there. We would have won.
Absolutely. It would have been awesome. But yes, do I love the fact that the Mavericks whooped up on the Clippers? You bet your ass I do. But let's talk implications here for a minute. In the grand scheme of things, this doesn't matter at all. The Clippers were without Kawhi Leonard, who is out with a mouth laceration, who just absolutely got clocked the night before.
By Ibaka, his own teammate.
His own teammate. And the Clippers just came out flat. I mean, Paul George had 10 points in the first quarter, but other than that, no one else could really do anything. I mean, it's hard to win when you shoot 4 from 33 from beyond the arc.
It is hard to win a basketball game when you only make 4 shots. That makes it very difficult.
No, those are threes.
Just on threes. Hey,
4 from 33 from three-point land.
That is such a low percentage.
12%.
Now, my question is with the Clippers is, are you worried at all as to what this team is if you don't have Kawhi Leonard on the floor? Like, you just invested a lot of money into Paul George, who just led you into into the worst defeat in Clippers history, which is a hard thing to do because the Clippers lose a lot.
Yeah, back in the day before you young people, back in the day, they were terrible. And I am one of those young people.
They were really, really bad. So to beat the record for the biggest loss with one of the only good teams that you've ever actually had, that's bad.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough. It is, I mean, the sky isn't falling if you're a Clippers fan. It was one of those things where everything went right for the Mavericks. I mean, I'm talking prayers were going up when Willie Cauley-Stein makes a three. You know, you're in a world of hurt when Willie Cauley-Stein makes a three.
Yeah, just go sit on the bench and watch the clock run out once that's starting to go down.
So, I mean, it's one of those things where it happened, it sucks, but in the grand scheme of things, kind of like the Lakers losing night one, it doesn't matter. That being said, on the flip side for the Mavericks, who had lost their first two games, won a heartbreaker in Phoenix, and then they got trounced by the Lakers. This I think, means more to the Mavericks than people think because it's a good confidence builder. The Mavericks had the Suns, Lakers, and Clippers to start the year all on the road, all over Christmas. It's nice to end a road trip on a win before you go home, and to win in this fashion, it gives them a whole lot of confidence on a young team.
Yeah, I think confidence is definitely one of the major things you're going to be getting back from a game like that. What I really see when I look into it is that your main focus in the offseason, if you're the Mavs, was to get defense. And you're really working on defense, and you gave up some guys that you're a little worried about. Like you gave up Seth Curry to go and bring back Josh Richardson, who's a great shooter and really help the flow of the offense. When I see an outcome like that and the team flowing as well and being as hot as they were, I think that the Mavericks are well on their way to still being, if they're not a top 5 offense by the end of the season, I would be absolutely stunned. Because I think that it's still going to work really well, even though you may have lost some offensive weapons. I take from this game okay, I'm not worried about the offense.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the offense will click, just like any team. I think defense comes before offense because offense is more like skill and like it takes a lot more touch. Where defense, if you can give a good effort and you try really hard, you can still be a good defender. You might not be a great defender because you need a lot of tools and you need a lot of athletic ability, but you could go out there and be an average NBA player and just go balls to the wall on defense and be a decent defender. And that's what I think is happening right now. I mean, Luka has still only made 1 3-pointer on the whole year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
One for 20, or maybe he might have made 2, so 2 for 20 or something. Yeah, he's not good from 3. So everything will figure itself out. But again, just like the Clippers, it's one game. Everything will come back. I mean, they didn't have Kawhi, so yes, Kawhi is a big difference maker on the team. He's one of the top 5 players in the NBA right now. But they still have Paul George. They still have a lot of good things. The weird thing about me is this Clipper bench has not been playing like I thought it would.
Yeah. What did they do in that game?
They only had one player off the bench in double figures, which was Zubac. Lou Will did not score. He was 0 for 4 in 9 minutes. He only played 9 minutes, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, I had imagined that a lot of that has to do with the fact that they were getting blown out by so much so early that it was like, okay, let's play Terrence Mann 23 minutes. So let's play Coffee 17 minutes, and Kabengele is going to get 15 minutes. So it was a lot of their deep bench guys that were playing the majority of that second half is my bet. And they were missing Kawhi Leonard, and they're still missing Marcus Morris. Both of them are going to be, obviously Kawhi's awesome. Marcus Morris was really great for them last year. Losing by 50 sure is a gut punch, and there's really only one of 2 ways you can take it. One is, look, we're not that much better than all these teams. We got to keep working hard. We got to keep pushing. We can't underestimate anyone. Anyone can come out and beat us at this point. Or you just kind of start pointing fingers and being like, no, you're the one that did bad, or no, you're the reason that we did bad, or we're bad because we don't have Kawhi. Kawhi's going to sit games. That's just the reality of the fact. And so if your team's going to be this bad when Kawhi's not on the floor, you're going to have a hard time beating anyone in the NBA.
Absolutely. And it's just interesting to me that Kawhi sits, Paul George sits. They are never this bad. It's crazy to me that you lose by 51.
Yeah.
I'm just
bad.
I'm just shocked. I'm happy I'm a Mavs fan, obviously, but taking my fanship out of it, any team loses by 51. Come on.
Even a bad team. Even if the Pistons came out and lost by 51, I'd be like, ooh,
you're all
that's
professionals.
Real bad.
You're professional athletes. You get paid to play this sport. You can't. I get everyone has an off night, but you can't point fingers after a game like this because everyone's to blame. When you lose by 51, everyone is to blame. The coach is to blame. The assistant coach is to blame. The players, even the guy at the end of the bench, the towel guy. Screw you, towel guy.
Nobody's a winner. Nobody is a winner in that organization when you are losing in this kind of fashion. So, but hey, absolute props to the Mavericks. Good job, you guys. Yeah. And it's your revenge game.
Don't get me wrong. I love it when the Clippers lose. All right, let's move on to our next topic here, which is not as fun of a topic. It's kind of a sad one. Spencer Dinwiddie suffers an unfortunate knee tweak, partially tears his ACL, probably out for the whole year. They haven't officially ruled him out. They're saying it depends on how quickly he can recover. Kind of a blow to a surging Nets team to start the year. They were hot out of the gate.
Yeah. Nets were playing really well, and Dinwiddie was actually who they were starting at the 2 guard next to Kyrie, and they were bringing Karis LeVert off the bench. And I think that the whole game plan was Dinwiddie is a really good team guy, very high IQ basketball player. He can find the soft spots. He doesn't need the ball in his hands to be effective, and so he fit perfectly into a starting lineup that had Kyrie and Kevin Durant, because if you're starting with them, there's a low chance that you're actually going to get many creation opportunities. And while Dinwiddie is a good creator, he fit really well into that starting lineup, which is why they put arguably a better basketball player, Karis LeVert, on the bench. Now that you have this injury, you have to assume that Karis LeVert's probably the guy that steps in there at the 2, or they use Joe Harris at the 2, Karis LeVert at the 3. But how is that going to mess with their chemistry? Because it was really looking like fluid in the first couple games.
Yeah, Steve Nash was looking like a brilliant mind at the beginning of this year. The ball movement was crisp. Everything was looking good. Their assist numbers might not have been as high as people think. I think they were ranked 20th in the NBA in terms of assists, but their ball movement was good, and it was a lot of ISO, but with cuts and stuff like that off of it, which was honestly kind of fun to watch. Dinwiddie was the perfect person to play in that role of, I've got 2 superstars next to me. I can score if I need to, but why would I really push the pace and try to do anything when I can get it to someone better than me? I mean, his stats were not pretty by any stretch of the imagination. 6.7 points per game, 3 assists, 4 rebounds, while only taking looks like 5 shots a game and shooting 37% from the field and 28 from 3. So not great numbers, but a guy that can move the ball, a guy that can find the open guy, a guy that can get that one extra pass, that pass to assist type of guy, that hockey assist.
The hockey assist.
Thing. Yeah, he's very good at that.
Yeah, because he's really good at reading the court, and he's really good at reading what is the like when you're playing chess, you want to be one move ahead. He's really good at knowing what is the next move ahead, and that's why he fit really well into that starting lineup. So yeah, you have other guys. Maybe you put Shamet in there. You have maybe a Jeff Green if you want to be a real switchy kind of defense. I mean, it'd be a little big, but they have a lot of different pieces that they may be able to throw into this lineup now with Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, Bruce Brown, Karooks, who actually has been on and off a good basketball player in the NBA before. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But it's just devastating to see that happen to a guy like Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yeah, a great guy, a little bit of an oddball, but a very great guy, a very good player. You hate to see anyone get hurt, especially a guy like Spencer Dinwiddie, who is on arguably his first good team in his career. He's been on some all right teams, but this was his first all right, we can
win a championship here,
which is a bummer. Who knows? He might come back this year. It's only a partial tear from what we've been told as fans right now, but hopefully he gets better and hopefully he can come back and play and contribute to a good Nets team.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the Nets are going to be fine. You still have Kyrie and you still have Kevin Durant, but this does mess with your team flow, and this is the first challenge in Steve Nash's coaching career. He did put a system around Kyrie and Kevin Durant, and through the first several games it looked good. Now you lose a guy that plays about 25 minutes a game. How are you going to replace that? Who are you replacing it with? What are your rotations going to look like now? This is the first challenge for Steve Nash. So a lot of interesting storylines coming along with Spencer Dinwiddie going down.
Absolutely. And it's going to be a good question of whether or not LeVert starts or if he continues to thrive in his bench role and they start a guy like Shamet or Jeff Green. It'll be definitely something to watch going forward.
Yeah, I kind of hope they keep him on the bench because he was my dark horse 6th man of the year. And I think that he's really playing up to it right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that is our last basketball-related catch-up. I know, Mitch, you wanted to give a shout-out to a great man who passed away.
Yeah, shout-out to Casey Jones. Casey Jones was a basketball player a long, long time ago. He won his very first championship in 1959. Casey Jones was roommates with Bill Russell at the University of San Francisco, where they won 2 titles. They were then both drafted to the Boston Celtics, where Casey Jones won 8 consecutive championships alongside Bill Russell. He then went to coach for the Boston Celtics and won 2 more titles while coaching Larry Bird in the Boston Celtics. It's really sad to see a legend pass away. He was older. He was 88 years old. Rest in peace, Casey Jones. Prayers out to your family, but it's definitely the NBA lost a good one today.
Yeah. Definitely sad to see legends go. Definitely an unfortunate thing. Like you said, we echo the prayers out to the family and everyone else who could be affected by this loss. The Boston Celtics lost one of their idols for sure.
Yeah. So thank you for all the great NBA memories that you have given the league, Casey Jones. You were a great one.
Yeah. If you ever want to watch some dominance, go watch the Celtics run of, I think it was 11 titles in a row, and it was just you people who are sick of the Warriors championship runs or sick of LeBron doing what he's doing, go back and watch the Celtics things, because it was just unfair. That team was ridiculous.
Yeah, those Celtics teams were amazing. Obviously run through Bill Russell, but Casey Jones along with Sam Jones were major pieces. And there's a reason Casey Jones sat around for 8 of those championships. Like, they didn't want to get rid of him. He was a very, very good basketball player.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up our catch-up podcast. That's catching you up on the first week of the NBA, man.
Yeah. NBA basketball is back. We will be back. Very happy to be back in the Fort Worth. Let's do it, man.
Yeah, we're excited to get some more going. We'll be back with you guys on Wednesday, and have a good week, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers.